Some men rule with laws, others rule with fear. One named terrified Europe, Vlad III of Wallachia, accused of drinking blood, eating corpses, some propaganda, some truth. Demon to enemies, justice to his people. History still debates. Not a vampire story. A ruler who weaponized fear. A boy forged by invasion, betrayal, and death. A man who turned cruelty into law. A question remains: monster or necessary ruler? Time remembers its heroes in song, but it whispers of its monsters in fear. Welcome to History's Monsters. Before Dracula was a myth, there was a man far more terrifying. His name was Vlad III of Wallachia, known as Teeps. The Impaler was not a creature of fiction, but flesh, steel, and vengeance. In a time of endless war and betrayal, he ruled with an iron fist and a forest of sharpened stakes. To enemies, he was a monster. To his people, a brutal savior. Raised as a hostage in the Ottoman Empire, he would later defy. When he returned, he brought fire and retribution. Wallachia would be ruled through fear. He impaled thousands, nobles, soldiers, criminals, and watched them die in agony. Foreign kings and sultans whispered his name with dread. Ambassadors feared even stepping into his halls. But who was the real man behind the terror? A sadist? A patriot? Or something far darker? This is the untold story of Vlad the Impaler, the real monster behind the Dracula myth. In the blood-soaked heart of Eastern Europe, Wallachia stood as a bulwark between empires. In 1431, in the fortress town of Sigysora, a boy was born to a ruthless noble. His name, Vlad. Vlad's father, Vlad II Dracula, was a member of the Order of the Dragon, a Christian knighthood sworn to fight the Ottomans. Young Vlad's childhood was scarred by betrayal. At 11, he and his brother were taken hostage by the Ottoman Empire. Inside the Turkish court, Vlad learned their language, customs, and many other things. But captivity didn't soften him. It sharpened him into a weapon of vengeance. After years in chains, Vlad escaped. He would reclaim his homeland with fury. Wallachia was in chaos, occupied by rivals and plagued by corruption. Vlad saw what needed to be done. Mercy was weakness, terror was power. Boy who survived Ottoman chains returned to Wallachia as something else, an avenger cloaked in blood. Vlad claimed the Wallachian throne in 1456, not with diplomacy, but with dread. His rule began with mass executions. Traitors, rivals, and nobles who defied him were butchered. The forests of Wallachia were transformed into graveyards. The stakes rose like trees. Vlad didn't hide his brutality, he advertised it. He wanted enemies to fear the very thought of crossing him. Common thieves were punished with impalement. No one was beyond his reach. But his cruelty wasn't mindless. It was surgical. Each death sent a message. To him, terror was justice. Fear kept the peace better than law. Even foreign envoys weren't spared. Those who refused to remove their hats had them nailed to their heads. Western Europe called him a madman, but Wallachia was safer than ever. To his people, he was a protector. To the rest of the world, a demon. By 1461, Vlad's reign had caught the attention of the Ottoman Empire, and Sultan Mehmed II, conqueror of Constantinople. Mehmed sent envoys demanding Vlad submit and pay tribute. Vlad had other plans. Instead of bending the knee, Vlad impaled the envoys and sent their bodies back. War was inevitable. Vlad struck first. In a daring winter raid, he crossed the Danube and scorched Ottoman settlements. He left a trail of corpses and terror. Villagers fled at the sound of hooves. He was death on horseback. Sultan Mehmed responded with overwhelming force. 90,000 men marched to crush Vlad. Vlad couldn't match them in strength, but he could outwit them with terror. In the infamous night attack of 1462, Vlad disguised himself and infiltrated the Ottoman camp. He tried to assassinate the Sultan himself, but failed. Still, chaos erupted, and Ottoman troops turned on each other. When Mehmed finally reached Vlad's capital, he found it deserted, except for a forest of 20,000 impaled corpses. Despite his victories, Vlad had enemies not just beyond his borders, but within them. The boyars, Wallachhia's elite, resented Vlad's brutality and iron rule. Vlad never forgot the boyars who betrayed his father. He invited them to a feast, then executed them all. Survivors were forced to march barefoot to rebuild his fortress. Many died along the way. Foreign powers saw opportunity. Hungary's King Matthias Corvinus began plotting. A forged letter painted Vlad as a traitor conspiring with the Ottomans. With Hungary's support, Vlad's cousin launched a coup. Wallachia turned on its prince. Betrayed, surrounded, and outnumbered, Vlad fled into the Carpathian Mountains. He sought aid from Corvinus, but was instead arrested and imprisoned. The Prince of Terror had become a prisoner, but the story was far from over. For over a decade, Vlad sat in a Hungarian prison, while others ruled his homeland. He waited, watched, and survived, his legend growing beyond his cage. Meanwhile, his younger brother Radu ruled Wallachia as a puppet of the Ottomans. Radu's reign was peaceful, but weak. The people whispered Vlad's name in fear and longing. Vlad converted to Catholicism in captivity to gain political support in the West. Eventually, Matthias Corvinus needed Vlad again. Wallachia was vulnerable. Released in 1475, Vlad was given soldiers and a second chance. He returned to Wallachia not as a prince, but as a hardened relic of a bloodier time. Radu had died. The throne was empty. Vlad took it again for the last time. But peace would not follow. His enemies were already gathering in the dark. Vlad's final reign was brief, but as brutal as ever. He resumed executions and purges immediately. The Ottomans returned, and again, Wallachia was plunged into war. In 1476, Vlad was ambushed and killed in battle. Some say by the Ottomans, others by his own men. His head was cut off and sent to the Sultan in Constantinople, proof the Impaler was dead. But even in death, his legend lived. Centuries later, Bram Stoker would resurrect him as Count Dracula. But the real Vlad was darker than any vampire tale. He ruled through fear, and fear has a long memory. In Wallachia, the forests no longer bleed, but the soil remembers. Vlad Tepes, ruler, warlord, monster, remains history's most terrifying prince. History often smooths its monsters, rounds the edges, dims the horror. Not Vlad. He was not a myth, nor merely a tyrant. He was terror made flesh. Behind the vampire legend stands a man whose cruelty reshaped a nation. His throne is long gone, but his legacy survives in fear, ink, and blood. and in the shadowed corners of the Carpathians, they still whisper his name.